Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Pitafi. Yesterday we did a post-mortem of the by-election outcome. Today we are going to look at the outcome of that outcome. How does it define the policy in coming days? What exactly is going to happen? The first thing that we have seen is quite amazing. PMLN is declaring now that given that it regained Lahore's main seats, that is why it proves their point that somehow the elections were rigged. But on the other side, we have also seen the commencement of a committee to investigate those charges headed by the Minister for Defense. That is one aspect. Then, of course, is the issue of policy. The previous government, when it left, we know it now, it left a lot of landmines in the shape of budget, and it had many traps for the government, the new government, and now it is getting quite visible. So the previous government now says, or the party that was in power only 4 or 5 months ago, that the new government doesn't know how to tackle these issues, and the new government, that is PTI's government, says that it has been only less than 2 months since it gained power. The previous government was given 5 years to judge, whereas the current one is not getting even 2 months when it comes to judgment by the media and by the political opposition. Today we are going to talk about all these matters, especially the economic aspects that are very important in this country. We have to remember that we still are talking about IMF. Finally, government went to IMF, but it seems that Pakistan spent a lot of time dilly-dallying or thinking about these matters. Maybe the better time would have been when the government took over. So we are going to talk about all these matters and more in order to help us understand these issues. We are joined by a very learned panel. We are joined by Shandana Gulzar Khan Sahiba, Parliamentary Secretary Commerce, MNA of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being part of the program. Next to her is Javed Siddiq Saab, Senior Editor, talk show host, and columnist also. Thank you very much, sir, for your time and for being here. Next to him is Dr. Niaz needs no introduction, a regular on this show, a political economist, one of my favorite columnists also. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the programs as well. And Shandana Sahib, I have to start with you. What do you make of all the criticism that is coming from the media and the opposition?
On which issue?
Everything. Economy, policy, people. How do you tackle things?
So it's interesting, G. I think a strong and healthy opposition and a vibrant media to keep us on our toes is probably the best thing that can happen to us. Having said that, sometimes I feel that people, and I don't mean the media, everybody is in a bit of a hurry. Now, we've made promises to the nation in the 100-day agenda. 6 themes, 35 promises. Interestingly, all those 35 promises, I said in an earlier interview, also coincide somehow or the other or overlap with the Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay.
Now, as you know, we've also got this indicator or tracker online in which we can measure the goals.
Yeah.
But what has happened recently is that real-world problems interfered in political problems. So there's the political side to the debate.
Okay.
But then
yours is a political government, by the way. So
Certainly.
you knew that what you are actually taking on.
Certainly. Nobody forced us to come into government. We fought an election.
Yeah.
We wanted
and fought for 22 years.
For a very, very long time. Bilkul. But even if we talk about the last 10, 12 years alone, the kind of anomalies that have shaped the fate of this nation, they cannot be undone in 100 days or even 200 days. I wish they could be done in 5 days. But when you have damaged the institutions, the fabric of business, of society, of transparency, of everything that is an indicator of how your country functions, then you don't become Brazil, then you become Zimbabwe. With no offense to either of the two countries or in particular deference. But I think we need to take a good look at ourselves that why are we here today? It's very easy to say 40 days you guys were not prepared. All right, let me concede temporarily that we failed, but on what exactly have we failed? Yeah. If somebody can point that out, I'm happy to respond.
Yeah, but there's one objection, and that is very pertinent, that your government took a lot of time in deciding to go to IMF. it takes a lot of time to actually convince IMF that
Yes.
they have to lend you or they have to offer you a bailout.
Yes.
And you took something like 50 days at least to actually decide that you have to go there. Had you known, and you knew the situation because your previous government, that was the caretaker government, actually left behind the paperwork that you can go to IMF and that is the only option. Why do you think that happened?
Actually, luckily, that was a good question for me. I was a part of the caretaker government as a consultant in the Ministry of Commerce. I was a part of the group that prepared the import restriction document, in which we wish to restrict luxury goods for the time being to ensure that the problem that we were facing in our balance of payments becomes alleviated to a certain extent. But I think one thing needs to be made very clear. Politically, had we gone to IMF 10 days earlier, 20 days earlier, 40 days earlier, 40 days later, the outcome I can guarantee you would have been the same. Politically. Now, people talk about the markets, the rupee devaluation. If we talk in facts.
Yeah, but you had more money back then. In 40, 50 days, dollar has been bleeding.
In the month of July, we already knew that we only had money till the end of December to cover our imports. And we started doing whatever it is we thought we could under the sun. IMF was one of the options. What I'm saying is...
Like going to Saudi Arabia?
Possibly.
Far-fetched?
Amongst, not necessarily, no. We had an Azerbaijani delegation over a couple of weeks ago,
a
couple of days ago. No, we're not.
Okay. They don't have money. You need money. The country needs money.
We don't just need money, Ji. We need money-making mechanism in this country. We can't borrow for the rest of our lives. And that is the main problem, if I may pinpoint that. That for 10 years we've been borrowing without a thought to the consequences. Forget the last 60 years. And not that the consequences are upon our head, but there's no self-pity involved here. We chose to take on this problem.
But the problem is, and I have to go to Javed Siddiq Sahab for that, but the issue is that no matter what, the country cannot function without money. And one does need money, whether you borrow, whether you find it from elsewhere, you have to have that. And we don't have it right now. Your take.
Sorry. I think this government, is being blamed for not doing its homework in a proper way. And they made lofty promises to the people of Pakistan. And the hopes were, hyped by the PTI election propaganda and other means. And so the people were just expecting that whenever the PTI government takes over, things will begin to change.
Javed Siddiq Sahab, you must have covered a lot of elections. Can you name a political party that doesn't build castles in the air before election?
No. But the way they have done it, because
everyone does.
No. But they,
Kashkol Torna is not new to them.
But
everybody kept on promising that, and everybody went back to IMF.
Yes, but the way PTI did it was different from PMLN and PPP, because PTI was giving an impression that these two governments, PPP and PMLN, they were absolutely incompetent. They were corrupt, inefficient, and inept. And here is a government which is well prepared to deliver on all these fronts, I mean the economic fronts. And as soon as we take over, we will take steps one by one that will start reforming the entire system, the revenue collection system. And they have something like, they have a panacea to all these problems.
But
so that was the impression which was created by...
They will start doing it in 100 days?
The 100 days deadline was
they still
fixed.
Are on the 60th
November.
By the PTI chief, Mr. Imran Khan himself delivered a speech, a victory speech, and he said that he needs 100 days, and in 100 days he will, the people of Pakistan will witness a big change, a huge change, and they're still continuing that line of thinking.
And we still are waiting for that 100-day
exactly
mark,
100
right?
days to complete. I think half of them are gone, but we are still left with 50 days maybe.
Why do you think that media keeps on making it difficult for any party to govern Pakistan?
Because media is keeping a watch.
On whom?
On the working of the governments.
And who's going to keep a watch on media itself?
There must be a watchdog on media as well. I'm in favor of that.
No sense of accountability.
Accountability, yes.
Get
Accountability,
very
yes.
angry
In other countries of the world, there are media watchers, there are media watchdogs, and there are ombudsmen. who keep looking at media, its performance, its bias or its tilt.
Right.
Or,
Javed Siddiq sahab, correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying that media is doing its job. It is perhaps the government which might be lacking.
Yeah.
Is it what you're saying?
I'm saying this, but you raised the question about the accountability of media.
That was something
I am
that
in
just
favor
came
of
in.
this. I'm in favor of it. I don't want media to be an independent media in a way, in a fashion that they
Out of
forget-
control media.
But media has to operate within the parameters of law, not
Right.
beyond that.
Right, and that might not be happening. Dr. Niaz Murtaza, your opening comment, sir. You
Well,
have listened to our participants.
Just opening comment? Or?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want to.
Well, I mean, I am assuming that we are, still believing in cause and effect relationships. We are not talking about, Arabian Night style miracles. So, if we believe in cause and effect relationships, the one as I believe in as a social scientist is that the quality of outcomes that the PTI will produce will depend on the quality of policies that it follows. And the quality of policies that it follows will depend on the quality of the team that it's okay. So it's of course too early to judge the outcomes.
Right.
It's perhaps even too early. Outcomes might take up to 2 years, serious ones to materialize. Policies development can also take 3 to 6 months. So that's not a long time. But the issue is again with the the team, because the team has already been selected, and there were a lot of like I mentioned in one of the programs, we haven't had cabinet appointments. We've had cabinet disappointments.
Okay.
A lot of
Why
old
would you
style
say that?
people, people who had been part of so many governments in the past,
Like
Musharraf government.
name a few.
Well, about I think what 50-60% of the federal cabinet
Name a few.
is from the Musharraf era.
Yeah, but
Right.
once in Musharraf's era, and
Yeah,
then
so
they
they've
didn't
been
come back
tried.
to
They've
power.
been tried and tested, so
Once,
what
sir.
kind of output they can have. Similarly, at the provincial level, so people haven't really found the team very exciting. Then the other thing was the kind of promises that
People or the pundits?
I think both, by the people as well as the pundits. If you go
Okay.
around and talk to even ordinary people, your relatives, your friends, middle class people who were strong supporters of PTI, they were disappointed by the team. And then the kind of promises, as Mr. Javed was saying, and you said that everybody makes promises. But the nature of the promises that the PTI made was very different, that the quality of governance, Naya Pakistan, it will be something completely different. And then when you have the actual governance, I mean, it looks almost amateur. It's like looking at, an under-19 team playing rather than, a test cricket team.
What
playing.
gives you that impression?
The way they are going around doing things,
Like
so,
what?
So, Luti vi daulat, austerity measures, donations for dams. These are hardly solid, serious policy decisions. They are like, the way, amateur people will look at things and, take decisions. So, the first 2.5 months have basically been, spent on austerity drive, donations for dams, Luti vi daulat, and then, $10 billion being laundered every month. If we can get them back, you still don't have, serious issues. Now, there's this Naya Pakistan housing scheme, and nobody knows how it's going to be funded. Private sector funding. Even private sector, where is that money going to come from?
So it's a long list of complaints
A
in
long list of
in
complaints.
60 days
Yeah.
of government that you have.
Basically the team, and then some of the actions that have been taken.
Right.
But I wouldn't say that this is the end of the story. Let's hope they can reinvent themselves.
Yeah, but
and
you are
start
not-
delivering.
but you are
so
not
far
excited.
It has been a bad start. Let's put it that
Right.
way.
Shandana
Maybe 19
Sahib,
for 3.
you have
or
listened to both
like
our
that.
participants, and they have a long list of complaints. And one thing is for sure. Did your government really think that when you come into power, you can bring back looted money immediately? Or for that matter, you can just call for some kind of, funding drive, and people will just give you the kind of money that is needed to run a country? What exactly went wrong?
I don't think anything has gone wrong just yet, G. This is still on the agenda, bringing back the looted wealth. And I don't necessarily mean the usual suspects. There's many more that we don't know of.
Okay.
The agenda to get people to invest in Pakistan beyond Saudi and China is still on. They brought in a team today to talk about better ways to figure out that how the money left and how to bring it back. I think one thing people miss is, and I don't blame them, I'm also a citizen of this country, and frankly, I'm exhausted there's nothing but bad news. And bad news, unfortunately, breeds cynicism. I'll give you a small example. A couple of days ago, in fact, right before the Finance Minister, Asad Omar Sahib, left for Indonesia, they had a long chat with APTIMA colleagues from Faisalabad, All Pakistan Textile Mills Association. They'd been complaining for only 2.5 years, and Commerce Ministry, I can reveal this now, at that time was on their side. We felt that regulatory duty should not have been imposed by the Finance Ministry on import of raw materials. Now, this is a small thing, but what did you do? You shut down 100 mills. Who were you pleasing? Obviously, there's going to be lobbies in a government. But when you are going to destroy your own exports, the tune of $3 billion in 16, 18 months, that is why we complain about lack of management. I agree with my colleague that we are definitely...
18 months?
18 months, a year and a half is how long it took for $3 billion of the exports to come down. At the same time, they increased their revenues.
Are you talking about Ishaq Dar or you're talking about Miftah Ismail?
Ishaq Dar Sahib, with all due respect. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that people don't look, I don't feel that 100 mills have opened up of APTIMA and all of Pakistan should rejoice, not at all. But that never makes the news. But I think that part of us has become so exhausted and so cynical that even if some good news does come across, we tend to sort of brush it off. No. We were given much bigger promises, and I guarantee...
Highlight one good news.
Well, the APTIMA was one of them. The second one was the electricity issue. Let's come back to the electricity issue. And then I'll also address the housing issue. When you talk about electricity, we were around, we were watching when electricity was produced. I come from a village where we get electricity for 2 hours a day. And there's absolutely no gas provision. So what to talk about expenses and enhancement? What's interesting is that nobody talks about the fact that they may have, according to them, set up the previous government the cheapest electricity units. But at what prices are you generating them and at what prices are you selling them? We're still subsidizing that electricity. NEPRA and OGRA, the minute we came to the government, the first day, they gave us their recommendations that unless you raise these prices, we're hitting rock bottom. Why would you want to do that? It's counterintuitive. Look at it. You've got a by-election coming up. You've got a lot of accountability work to be done. People are conflating your government with NAB. Even the arrest of these teachers, whom I found horrendous, and the entire government, what are you doing? What PTI actually, forget it, forget that PTI is the government. PTI is a political party.
I get
Why
your
would
point.
you do that?
I get your point, but you have to answer my question.
Yes, please.
Name a good news.
Quite a few good news. You're actually going to IMF, you're talking to them, and you're not talking to them just about the loan. You're talking about reform. You're talking to China. China has agreed. There was a very interesting article a couple of days ago. China said we never had any objection to whatever kind of transformation within the CPEC you may wish to do, favoring one province over the other, distributing the equality, making sure that you're not using more coal than so many things inside. When has that ever happened before? When has the common man been heard before?
Hearing common man is important thing, but common man must be waiting for some great news as well. And so far they haven't received any news of any relief, so to speak.
To be honest, as I said, maybe I have a bias because I come from a very, very difficult area. My area
I do too.
Is ex-Talibanized and still criminalized. People still believe because they feel that if they've been sort of guinea pigs for 70 years, 40 days, 50 days is not going to kill them. This is a resilient nation. And let's not underestimate ourselves. Tough times, as that movie says, there will be blood, certainly. For so much mismanagement, you're not going to get, hopscotch flowers overnight.
Yeah, there will be blood, but the problem is, as a citizen of this country, I have seen too much blood for 72 years.
Yes.
And someday we have to stop seeing that.
Yes.
Sir, your comment, your reflection.
I think yes, but PTI, the chief of PTI, Mr. Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, has been saying that he has been struggling, his political struggle spans for about
22 years.
22 years. So what were the preparation? I mean, he has been thinking, conceiving situations like this, that this whole system is rotten, that the corruption is rampant in Pakistan, and the institutions are not delivering, people are not honest, they're not committed.
But integrity is not preparedness?
No,
when a prime minister comes and nobody can complain that he might be corrupt, is it not a preparation enough in a country where every prime minister has been accused of that?
No. The prime minister, this prime minister,
Yeah.
he actually raised the hopes of the people that everything under the other governments, the previous governments, was going wrong.
And do you agree with the assessment that he is not corrupt?
No, I think people were comparing him with the previous leaders and they thought that he is less corrupt or there are no serious charges of corruption against Imran Khan. That
Right.
is the difference.
So that
they
makes a point, right?
Yes. So
If
they
you
were-
have integrity, you win people's support as well.
Yes.
And perhaps he is in better position to lead the nation at this moment.
Exactly, but you know, he has come into power through a parliamentary election where his majority is very slim. One of the critics of the PTI government, a PMLN female leader, she said that they are existing on the basis of 4 seats in the National Assembly. One of the components of PTI government says goodbye to this government, the government collapses. So that they must keep in mind. This government is not the product of a mass revolution or a revolution of people's revolution. So they have to take all these things into account. That they have to basically bring all those people on board.
Is it not true that that kind of alliance might be actually keeping them from delivering immediately?
No, that's not
Because
the
they
reason.
cannot make
I
their
think
mind and just deliver?
All those who have come together, they must be thinking on this, they must be on the same page, that we need reforms, that we need to put an end
Sir,
to
I see a
this
lot of
loot and
task
plunder.
forces that are working. My question right now is, and that actually makes me wonder, what exactly is the expectation of preparedness? Did you expect them to hit the ground running? I thought that they have.
In democratic dispensations, the opposition always comes up with a shadow cabinet.
Yeah.
And if they had come into power, immediately they would have put the right people in the right place, which they didn't do. And as my colleague has pointed out, that they have not been able to build a very competent team as yet.
You agree with him that they don't have a very competent
No,
team?
they don't have, except a few people. They are experienced people.
I thought that they are best of the technocrats this country provides.
But I think Asad Umar Khan is one of the competent persons who I think is
And look how media is treating him now.
No, that's a different issue. But his survival will depend on what he delivers to the nation.
Right.
If he is able to bring down inflation, is able to stop...
That won't happen immediately. Inflation is going
It will
to continue
take
for
time.
2 years.
I know it will take time. Second, that he has said only yesterday, I was watching him in an interview, he was saying that we have completed the process of the paperwork to introduce a legislation to stop all those ways from where the money is being laundered, or all those mechanisms which are used to launder money from Pakistan. We are already prepared a draft law and we are going to introduce it to the parliament. It's a good move, and I think that will help us
in the long run.
in the long, yeah.
Right. Dr. Saab, your take, sir?
Well, I'm not really a very firm believer in, the virtues of honesty as far as,
Virtues of
governance
honesty.
is concerned.
You don't agree with that?
Let me just, make my point. I mean, there's
Make
not
that
a
point, but allow me to
single
register my
country-
surprise.
There's not a single country which has followed this fairy tale path that where, the corruption was eradicated first of all, and then, all this progress then came back. What has happened, if you look around, what you see is that, country find ways of developing despite very high levels of corruption. And once they start developing, they have more money, the government earns more money, then it has money to, invest in institutions, etc. And then slowly, corruption keeps going down. So if you look at, China and India, the two best performance economically in the third world, and their transparency index
They're leading
scores
economies.
are almost the same as Pakistan. So, again, putting so much emphasis on corruption and then making these promises that you can do away with corruption and that's going to, open the doors to progress.
But Dr. Saab,
I think
I'm
that
sure,
was-
sorry to cut you, but I'm sure that you must be watching what is going on with Indian economy and Chinese economy right now. Both are crashing as this.
Well, I won't
as
say
we
they are
speak.
crashing. They might
India
be slowing
is.
down. They might be slowing down. But, what are the reasons? India had...
12 lakh crore
India-
rupees worth of default in India.
in some ways, Modi is in the same mold, populist and, you know,
Yeah.
coming from a very honest background. But, you know, what happened to their monetization drive?
Okay.
It was a failure. I mean, it hurt the Indian economy. So, you know, these woolly ideas about, you know, eradicating corruption, you know, they don't really work in
So we have to make
practice.
peace
If you
with
look
the
at
fact.
South Korea, the last 4 presidents of South Korea have been convicted for corruption, and still, you know,
Are
it's,
you, Dr. Saab, are you implying
I'm not
somehow?
implying,
No, hang
to,
on, hang
you know,
on.
just
Are
let
you
corruption
implying
be.
that somehow the current government is honest, but despite that it won't be able to do anything,
That
and the
honesty
previous
is not
government
going
was
to happen.
corrupt,
Very much
and
we need
despite that it
policies.
won't be able
I
to
know
do?
there's a saying honesty is the best policy.
Okay.
But, you know, in practical life, you need other policies besides honesty.
Dishonesty being one of them.
Not dishonesty, but actual policies where you can, you know, attract investment, where you can increase taxes and so on. So the fact that, you know, Imran Khan is honest, nobody is going to start paying taxes because of that. So they have
Okay.
to come up with,
Can you-
solid policies for all.
If I ask you to give them some suggestions, can you? How to improve policy?
Well, I mean, you know, it goes back to the team. You know, they have to have people, you know, better people.
They have a team, but they might be listening, right? So give whatever ideas you have. It's an open forum. You can do it.
Well, again, you know, for example, you know, taxes. I think that's the biggest issue right now. And on the other hand, it's, you know, export. Those are the 2 biggest areas. If they can solve those 2 problems, which no Pakistani government has been able to do for the last 30 or 40 years.
On trade,
Yeah.
the world commodity market is in recession. It
is in
not.
recession, right? So, you know, it's not
it
a
is not
matter of, you know,
operational.
just giving some, you know, easy solutions to them where they can just go and, you know, so they are facing a very tough environment, and there's no doubt about it that the last government has left behind a mess, especially, you know, Mr. Dar, there's no doubt about it. Mr. Ismail started, you know, taking action.
But he ended up reversing whatever good the previous government, previous
Well, I
finance
mean, you
minister
know, you
done.
had to slow down growth because, you know, it was unsustainable. But I fully
Slowing down
agree
is
with
one
that,
thing,
you know,
and
that the
nosedive
last
is another.
government, especially on the current account deficit, it's left a huge mess.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you're seeing is not really the fault of this government. That's true. But then again, you're not seeing, you know, very fast action, solid action from them, which would, you know, make you think that, you know, they know how to get out of this mess.
Right. Shandana Sahaba, one thing that has to be said about your government and the impatience it is facing right now is that this party, when it was in opposition, used to actually encourage this kind of attitude. And now it is comeuppance. What do you have to say on that?
There's so many things to say. I don't know how much time I
Yeah,
have.
but you can answer me, and then I will keep on
Certainly,
raising the
certainly.
questions.
So I think firstly, if you look at the opposition from 2013 till 18, which was PTI, 35 odd MNAs, the opposition now,
Yeah.
very large opposition, people who ideologically were at each other's throats, and now they're best friends in arms. So I'm afraid that entire Nazariyati policy falls into tatters at that second.
So are you? MKM is your sitting beside you.
Yes.
Umpteen other parties are.
No,
So it is politics. Welcome to parliamentary politics.
Exactly. No. But what I'm saying is that for years we had these populist cries of being dragged on the streets and we'll do this. So all I'm saying is take everything with a pinch of salt. Let's not buy all the drama. People have a right to be dramatic. We don't deny them that right to be dramatic, but let's not believe that hype either, firstly. Secondly, very interesting questions were raised by my colleagues and a lot of really valid points. Maybe I grab investment. One of the initiatives that Commerce Ministry has rolled out it's called Sprint. This is early October, and what we're trying to do is look at the reasons why Pakistan, despite having one of the world's most open investment regimes, nobody wishes to invest.
Okay, you are literally
That's
calling
on
it
fact.
Sprint.
Yes, it is literally called
You
Sprint.
realize that there is a company with that name.
Yes, we'll see if we
You
run
can be
into,
sued
if we run
on
into
copyright grounds.
IPR right. So it's a theme. It's not a company that we're
Okay.
making. It's a theme.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is deal with indicators such as ease of doing business, cost of doing business. We're looking at the reasons why people don't wish to invest in this country. When you said earlier that we go to Saudi, we go to China because these are our close traditional allies.
Yeah, but
they don't put those new world requests to us that haven't been taken care of.
Yeah, but you realize what are the atmospherics.
Exactly. So if
Saudi
you let me
Arabia
respond- if you will let me
is
res-
trying to actually take care of its own deficit.
Exactly.
And China is in war, a state of war,
China.
trade war.
Oh yeah, with the United States, yes.
Yeah.
But that's
At
the
that
WTO,
time-
and we leave that to the system. That system will work itself out. It's multilateralism. It's being eroded by one particular member country of the WTO, and EU, I can say, is actively trying to undo that. But we'll see what happens. This is what I read
Yeah,
in
but
the news.
what I'm
But if
saying
I
is being realistic in approach is also important.
if you'll allow me to respond, this is what I'm trying to tell you.
You have all the time.
Thank you. For the last 10, 15 years, forget the last 70, 15 years, not a single modern developing country, take China, take Chile, forget China, Turkey, Chile, Thailand, Philippines. In no country do you see this spaghetti bowl of a mess that you see in this country. Your revenue policy is against your export policy, it's against your tariff policy, it's against your investment policy. Who's decided? Who's in charge? You come with huge mandates, massive, in the previous government you had 196 members from the ruling party. Where are the changes? You had the strength to make those changes. Why didn't you?
Yeah, but your
So-
argument is
No, no,
that
I'm
they
just- I'm
were
taking
the
it some-
old guard, you're the new guard, and
No,
you're different.
yes, and this is why
and
I'll
the
tell you why we're
problem is
different.
you make good promises, right? When you come into power and people are expecting, all of a sudden we see a tweet coming from the Prime Minister about the property, Islamabad property or Sarkari property.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, so investment.
And then something else happens. Then the Prime Minister goes on television addressing the people asking for donations in the...
No, those are two different things. You can't
No,
conflate them.
they are two different things. But
Yeah.
I'm saying that there he also mentions that if you send money back to Pakistan,
Yes.
it will take care of your foreign currency issue as well.
He's asking people, the people of Pakistan, the expatriates, to invest in their own country. You know that American citizens, no matter where in the world they work, they pay income tax. It doesn't matter where they live.
They do.
Right? So this is the same kind of situation, except that we've made it an SOS. Now, to come back to your investment thing, you've seen the anti-encroachment drive? I'm stuck on investment because I want...
Technically, it wasn't my thing, it was his thing.
I know, but you're a hair,
but
so I bring
make-
it to you.
Yeah.
So on investment, you've seen the anti-encroachment drive. Why do you think, again, so close to the election, so many people were unhappy with the government? The reason we did this is the following. The biggest organizations in the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, IMF tells you that till you respect people's property rights, nobody's coming here, nobody's setting up shop here. You see that 90 different people have gotten billions of rupees in their accounts. How does that happen? And how come it never happened before we came?
You're talking about investor confidence?
I'm talking about cleaning up the corruption. We're sending
Yeah, but at this moment, your government in Punjab, you have your government
Yes.
in Punjab,
Yes.
is bulldozing a lot of buildings,
Yes.
right? Many of those people who are sitting there claim that they were legitimate owners of those buildings. I don't know whether they were or they were not, but there is a lot of action going on.
No, I agree. That's what I'm
clearly
saying.
it doesn't
If
encourage
PTI
confidence.
If PTI was playing the populism card, they would have stayed away from the encroachments till after the 14th of October. That anybody can
They
tell
should
you.
have, by the way.
No, but that's
They
not,
should have.
That's not how a responsible government works.
Okay.
What we're trying to tell the world, not just Pakistanis, that we're open for business, and corruption has no more place in this society. We can't eradicate it overnight, but let no one ever be under this impression. Granted, honesty in itself doesn't build a country, but look at what corruption has done to you. You look at the index of corrupt countries, a very interesting and sad comparison somebody made yesterday, that this year the amount of Hujjaj, the pilgrims in Makkah, were twice the amount that they usually are from Pakistan, and we've gone up a couple more notches on the World Transparency Index for corruption. Okay. Look at the mindset of this country, that as long as I'm a devout Muslim, Christian, Hindu, X, Y, Z, I'm a devout PMLA and People Party, devout PTI even for that matter, everything else is kosher. That's not how it works.
Because this is how the state educates these people.
Has educated
They're our
these people. Yes, and that is why you're bringing down all the false idols you had inside the Kaaba. That's the kind of metaphor you have, that you're breaking down sacred.
Again, to rebut a religious myth,
Yes.
you refer to a religious incident and
There you
metaphor.
go.
That is quite interesting. But sir, Javed Siddiq Sahab, when we are talking about government's performance, and earlier we were, Dr. Sahab was citing India's example. There is one problem that we are missing right now. We spent past 15, 20 years in celebrating Dr. Manmohan Singh's legacy. And today people like Dr. Raghuram Rajan, who is of the equal stature, are actually rebutting that model and telling you that it was wrong direction to take, and now Indian government is going to go poof. It is going to just explode or implode. What exactly is the direction we have to take? The present government is at least trying to take stock of this situation. The previous government just tried to run as fast as possible the moment they landed, and look where that got us.
I think the previous government had their own economic philosophy. I mean, they were running the country from the economic perspective in their own fashions. I mean, they were after big projects like the Orange Train and metro buses and roads and railway networks and all that. And PTI, on the other hand,
Human
built
development.
a narrative that this is not the way to develop a nation. We should be focusing on human resource development, and we should be paying more attention on people's education, their livelihood, and education and health and all that.
Tell
now,
me, sorry to cut you, but tell me, are these two values mutually exclusive? Can't we do both?
they are not, but PTI thought, or their narrative then was, that the PMLN government was wasting the precious national resources on these mega projects which are not of any use. I mean, not of any use, but they were not beneficial overall for the economy of the country. That was their narrative then. And now they are in power, and probably they'll be introducing their model, that here, these are our priorities.
Okay.
First, they have decided to go to IMF to borrow more money, at least for the time being.
It wasn't the first decision.
It
First
was
they
not.
went elsewhere, and they came back.
The first was that they will not go to IMF,
Okay.
and they will try to raise this country on its own feet. But that didn't happen. So let's see if this government is able to introduce its own model in contrast to the models which were followed by PMLN and before that PPP, and they are able to deliver, and particularly on these 3-4 things. Number one, the generation of jobs, health, education sector. I mean, they are saying that they are starting this 5 million
houses cheap houses
Nia
scheme,
Pakistan Housing Authority they have set up, and they expect to generate a lot of employment through this project. So let's see how it plays out. But I think these are very important issues.
Right.
But at the
regarding
same
one thing that you said, and that is very important, you were talking about the mega projects, right?
Yeah.
PTI doesn't seem to have changed its position on them. It keeps on pointing out how they were deficit projects, and every month you have to pay more money.
Exactly.
So how do you
the
fund
metro
it?
bus project they are citing now?
Right. The kind of accountability that we have now for the housing authority that they are launching, we keep on questioning them on ifs and buts. But we didn't do that with the mega projects when the previous government was launching them, did we?
Obviously, I mean, the previous government had its own model, I said. And when they were there in 1990, they were also after these big projects.
Can you identify media's model?
No, there's no media model, but I think this motorway from Islamabad to Lahore was built during the Nawaz Sharif government, and they were also planning more big projects or mega projects like this, but they were not able to complete them.
Right.
Now when they came back, and you know, this yellow cab scheme, and youth loan schemes.
But Ashana,
this is typical. This is typical PMLN model. So,
yeah, but frankly,
so
there were a
PTI
couple of media groups that kept on focusing on that and kept on rebutting or objecting to such projects. Rest of them were not looking at the actual problem. Now the government is highlighting them, and it makes sense.
They did highlight it, but let's see what this
Nobody,
government, for instance, this
nobody
government,
spoke about deficit in these projects,
for
did
instance, the PTI has been banking a lot on the overseas Pakistanis, and they thought that this is an asset for the country, and they, through their help, they will be able to revive the sick economy of Pakistan.
Okay.
And
a quick question before I go to Dr. Saab. I'm told that we are left with 5 minutes. Previous government actually floated one idea that was very important. They talked about charter of economy. Do you think that this country needs something of that sort?
I think it does.
Right, sir. Dr. Saab, your take on this question, and you can comment on the previous ones as well.
Charter of economy, yeah. I mean, in some sense, a sort of a charter has already developed, because, the People's Party, the PMLN, everybody has gravitated towards the center, and those extremes are gone. But
People's
yeah,
Party's position is still, a socialist model.
it's not a socialist model. I wouldn't call
They
it a
want to
socialist
employ
model.
people in public sector.
They do, but on basic things like that it will be a capitalist economy, market will have precedents, etc. Nobody is talking about nationalization now. There might be some differences on
Thankfully so.
privatization. But yeah, I mean, there are clear things. Everybody should agree on taxing the rich, increasing the volume of direct and percentage of direct taxes versus indirect taxes. But then a lot of it is hard grind. How do you increase exports? You can't do it just by signing a charter.
Yeah, you
you
cannot.
have to compete in the global economy. But then
No, but
coming back to
the
the
idea,
model,
sir, hang on, sir. The idea behind a charter of economy was that one government comes and reverses the policies of previous one. They shouldn't be able
maybe
to
at the
reverse
project
the
level
good policies.
they might cancel a few projects, but you can't micro write everything from the beginning. But on broad issues, I think the biggest thing
There's
is
a consensus.
taxation.
Like
taxation.
CPEC?
Taxation. CPAC, of course, everybody agrees on, and I don't think any party
There is disagreement.
against. There's a disagreement on details, but
Yeah,
nobody is
we
saying
are talking about
that we
details as
should
well, because
end,
there's so much
CPAC.
money involved.
Right now, what PTI is saying is, the basic model is okay. There's nothing wrong with the loans. There's nothing wrong with this, and we are going to continue that. So, in terms of the big projects that you were talking about, a lot of them were from Chinese funding. So it depended on what China is willing to fund, and PTI did try to take them towards human resource development, etc. But they are not interested. But the end point again is to articulate their policies, come up with strong policies, and articulate them. And listening to Madam, clearly they have competent, articulate people. So I don't understand why they have to hire
Okay, you have successfully counted one
why
argument. Yeah.
do they have to hire voodoo economists to be the face and the voice of their economic policy? So utilize their team.
Who are
and
you
come up
calling
with-
voodoo
I'm
economist?
not going to take his name on the
I mean, come on, you are
said
implying
we.
something.
We already know
Have
it's
you
we.
looked at what is going on
So
in the
any
United
case,
States?
come
sir?
up with policies and articulate them well from competent people.
Okay.
And I think that will help them improve the situation.
Right,
quite a bit.
and I have to take the last question to Shandana Sahiba as well. But regarding voodoo economics, I tell you, in America also, there is a gentleman called Larry Kudlow. If you have followed him, you'll know that they are believing in the same kind of, economics, and they are getting away with it.
We don't have to follow.
Charter of economy. You have served under the caretaker government as well. You know how transition takes place. And then the next government comes and it might reverse it. Is it possible that all the political parties come together, agree on certain basic structure of economy, certain central things that are not reversed?
I think anybody who cares for this country would always gravitate to the center and agree on policies which are people-centric. Till today, we've not had people-centric policies. I don't mean people-centric politics, that is different. The first time this country ever heard about the people's needs were with Bhutto Sahib. After that, now we hear it with the current Prime Minister, Imran Khan Sahib. And now, my only concern is from a couple of colleagues of mine who are good friends once we're off the floor, but they are in a revenge mode. It's almost as if they've inherited this country, not the government. They've inherited it. I don't even know the English word for it, Hukamran. How does that even work, that mindset?
Okay.
If you're an elected representative of your country, I'm not elected, I'm a reserved MNA, and I know the kind of things my people are going through. So if you're human, you'll hurt. And if you hurt, you'll come to the center. But if you're going to play this blame game that I ain't nobody till you've proved it in a court of law, that's going nowhere. Okay. Let's save that rhetoric for the courts or for wherever they want to for the media. Charter of economy.
Will you be kind enough to put your own party on the mat here as well? Because your
Certainly.
party used to do it exactly the same kind of things only 6 months ago. In the
As I said, that was a 35-member micro-opposition with zero force to change anything.
Your luck.
Yeah, I would
But
say bad luck.
Still you had, this dharna sit-in that continued for 4 months.
Yes.
And you had various other momentums that actually shook the previous
There
government.
were reasons for everything, sir. Each and everything that happened. The first time, the spine, the backbone of this country is becoming jelly, because before it was power politics, and we're hoping to bring the change. We're hoping to be the change. Just one last word on the Charter of Economy. If the opposition wishes to sit down with us and talk economics and talk development, why would we say no?
Right, that is a welcome idea, and one has to, on that heartening note, we have to conclude the program. Shandana, Gulzar Khan Sahiba, thank you very much for your time. Javed, Siddiq Sahab, thank you very much for your time as well. Dr. Niaz Murtaza. Today I saw a little bit of change of heart, and that was heartening for me. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program as well. Viewers, you have listened to the participants. Of course, one has to talk about Charter of Economy, but then there are variations in the vision of various parties. I tell you, I can't worry too much about political parties coming on the same page because they are different political parties. But maybe there should be a charter of economy for the media, where the point one is that media men are taught economics. Because at this moment, the way we see television, the popular television, the pop culture television in Pakistan, most of the people keep on contributing to derailing economy, not enabling it, and that is not a good sign. Let us hope in coming days we see some change of heart or some change of mind in this country. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.